All right, team, listen up. As your cloud architect, I'm not just here to show you how to build software that works. I'm here to give you the blueprint for building software that thrives in the cloud. Today, we're diving into the 12-factor app methodology. Now, there are 12 principles, but we're going to laser focus on the ones that will make the biggest difference in your work, starting right now. This is our playbook. Let's get into it.
So look at this question. This isn't some far-off hypothetical anymore. In today's market, this is the challenge we face every single day. One successful launch, one viral feature, and this kind of growth can happen in an instant. And let me be clear, if our architecture isn't ready for it, our biggest success will become our biggest failure.
You know, it wasn't that long ago that scaling meant buying a bigger, more expensive server. We'd wait weeks for the hardware to show up, then schedule downtime to do the upgrade. Our apps were so brittle, totally chained to one single machine. That's the old way. The new reality, it's all on demand, cloud native, and built for horizontal scaling, which means we add more instances, not bigger ones. And that requires a completely different way of thinking about how we build our apps. In that new way of thinking, it's perfectly laid out in the 12-factor app methodology. Seriously, think of this as our checklist for cloud-native success. It was created by engineers at Heroku who were solving these exact problems at a massive scale. This is our guide to making sure that what we build is portable, resilient, and absolutely ready for whatever the modern web throws at it. So where do we even begin? We start at the foundation. This first part is all about getting the absolute basics right. How we manage our code, our configuration, and our external services. Trust me, if we mess this part up, nothing else we do is going to matter. The first, and maybe the most dangerous mistake I see all the time, is hard-coding configuration. We're talking about putting things like database passwords, API keys, or host names right there in the source code. It's not just a bad practice, it's a ticking time bomb for our security and our deployments. Now, take a look at this. It looks pretty innocent, right? Just a host name and a port. But what happens when we need to deploy this to staging or production? We have to go in and change the code. Now, just imagine for a second that this isn't a host name, but a secret API key. The moment that gets checked into our public Git repository, we've just created a massive security breach. This tight coupling between our code and our config is a huge anti-pattern.
So here are your action items. This is non-negotiable, folks. Configuration, and that means anything that changes between deployments belongs in the environment. It never ever belongs in the code. For your local development, .env files are a fantastic way to manage this. The key principle here is simple, a strict, clean separation between code and config.
All right, now that we've got a solid foundation, let's build on it. In part 2, we're going to talk about how our application actually runs and scales out there in the cloud. This is where we unlock the real power to handle that million-user traffic spike we were talking about. And that brings us to the most important concept of the day, statelessness. Seriously, if you remember only one thing from this entire explainer, make it this. To scale horizontally, to run hundreds of copies of our app at the same time, each and every one of those copies or processes has to be completely independent. They must share nothing. This quote from the 12-factor docs says it all. The application's memory, it's temporary, it's unreliable. You should think of it like a temporary scratch pad, not a permanent record. Anything, and I mean anything, that needs to survive or restart, or be shared across different instances, user sessions, shopping carts, visitor counts, all of that has to be externalized to a proper backing service, like a database, or a cache like Redis.
Here's a perfect example of exactly what not to do. We're trying to track a visitor count in a global variable, right inside the app's memory. Sure, this works fine if you have one user and one process. But what happens when the load balancer spins up 10 new instances to handle a traffic spike? Well, each one gets its own visit count, starting at 0. A user could hit refresh and see the site's visitor count suddenly drop from 10,000 to, like, 3. That's a completely broken and inconsistent experience for our users.
And this slide right here shows the fix. It's beautiful. We've moved the state out of the application and into Redis, which is our backing service. Now, it doesn't matter which one of our 100 app instances handles the user's request. They all read from and write to the exact same centralized visitor count. Any process can serve any user at any time. This, right here, is the absolute heart of horizontal scaling. So here's your checklist. I want you to comb through your code. Find anything that's being stored in memory or on the local disk that needs to stick around. User sessions are a super common culprit here. Move all of it to a proper backing service. This is absolutely critical refactoring work. You know, part of living in the cloud means that our processes are disposable.
A scaling event, a new deployment, a node failure, any of these things can cause our app instances to be started or stopped at any moment. Our app needs to be ready for this. It has to start up fast, so it can be useful quickly, and it has to shut down gracefully. That means when the environment sends it a sigterm signal, which is basically a polite request to terminate, it needs to finish up whatever it's doing before it gets forcefully shut down.
Okay, let's pull all of this together and define a clear mission for the team. We've gone over some core principles, so now let's talk about how we actually apply them across our entire development and deployment lifecycle.
The classic source of so many bugs. The infamous, but it worked on my machine. This usually happens because a developer is using different tools than production, like maybe using SQLite locally while production is on Postgres. The 10th factor, dev-prod parity, is all about closing this gap. We need to be using the same database, the same caching layer, the same everything across dev, staging, and prod. It helps us find bugs way earlier and makes our deployments way more predictable. No more surprises.
All right, next up, logs. In a world of containers, we have to completely rethink how we handle logging. The local file system inside a container is ephemeral, which is a fancy way of saying it disappears whenever the container restarts. Writing logs to a file inside the container is a guaranteed way to lose critical diagnostic info. Instead, we have to treat logs as a stream of events. Our app's only job is to write everything to standard output. That's it. We let the execution environment like Docker or Kubernetes capture that stream and send it to a centralized logging system.
So what about administrative tasks? Things like running a database migration, or in this case, resetting our visitor counter to 0. We don't bundle that kind of logic into our main web application. Instead, we run them as separate one-off processes. But, and this is the crucial part, they run against the exact same codebase and use the exact same configuration as our production app. This ensures they behave exactly as we expect them to. So, after all this work, what's the big payoff? Well, this table says it all. We move from brittle, risky, vertical scaling to resilient, on-demand, horizontal scaling. We go from being tied to a single server to being cloud agnostic. We move from slow, manual, risky deployments to fast, automated, and totally consistent ones. The benefits here are massive, and they directly impact our ability to deliver value to our users fast. Now, I know for those of you working on our older, legacy apps, this might seem a little overwhelming. So, I've put together a prioritized roadmap for you. Start right here. First, get all of that configuration out of the code and into environment variables. Then, make sure all your dependencies are explicitly declared. After that, you tackle the biggest one, making your processes stateless. And finally, fix your logging. This is your path forward. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to do a quick knowledge check, just to make sure these key concepts have really landed. No pressure, just a chance to lock in these ideas. First question for you. We spent a good bit of time on configuration. So why is storing it in environment variables so fundamental to this whole methodology? Think about separating concerns and being flexible with our deployments. And for the second one, we just talked about logging. In a cloud or container environment, what's the number one danger of writing logs to a local file? What makes that approach so fragile? All right, let's go over the answers. For number one, it's all about decoupling config from code. This gives us maximum flexibility and, of course, better security. For number two, it's about avoiding that ephemeral storage. Local files inside containers just aren't reliable. And that brings me to my final thought for you today. As you go back to your projects, I want you to ask yourselves this one question. Are we building our services for resilience, for the chaos of the real world, or are we just building for the perfect sunny day scenario? The 12-factor methodology is our playbook for building resilient, scalable systems that can handle the storm. That's all for now. Great work today, team.